All right. Well, welcome back to the mission of God for the family. We've got um, uh, today we're starting in to talk about kind of the practical side of parenting, the practical child rearing side of things. And I want to talk about uh, abdication is a word that we don't really use very often anymore, but it's a helpful category to have when going into this sort of discussion because fatherhood, one of the great temptations of fatherhood is abdication. Um, but a lot of times we don't know because we don't understand how responsibilities work, how covenant responsibilities work. We sometimes don't realize when we're abdicating in a particular area because a particular area is maybe a subset of total responsibilities, or there's a order of responsibilities. In order to get to one responsibility, you have to also have another responsibility taken care of, and um, so I want to talk about just the category of abdication in parenting and uh, how this works is in the garden, Adam was given the certain responsibilities, and we know that he couldn't accomplish those responsibilities on his own. Some of them technically he couldn't multiply. He can't multiply himself. He has to have a wife to be able to multiply. But others, in a wisdom sense, he didn't have all of the information or all of the wisdom necessary. And God gave Eve to him to be able to accomplish responsibilities that he was given. So he has the covenant responsibility for fruitfulness, for multiplying, right, for uh, transforming the world, for dominion. Eve is there to help him accomplish his responsibilities, but they don't become her responsibilities. He's given the mission. Now she is given to him as a gift, but he has to bring her into the mission in order for her to be able to help accomplish the mission that he has the responsibilities to do. And this has really practical manifestations because that means one, when what a wife brings to the table is a gift, right? That gratefulness, it turns out to be what fuels a wife's submission, what fuels a wife's ability to take on the mission that that was given to her husband as her own, right? So she comes in and when she takes on that mission as her own, a big part of the fuel for that is gratefulness, is thanks. And if a husband is thinking, well, she's got her responsibilities, I've got my responsibilities, so I don't need to say thank you when she just does her part. You have to realize that there isn't any part that is her part. The whole thing is the responsibility of Adam. And then Adam needs help to do, he can't actually do on his own the things that he is responsible for. And that's a normal covenant setup where the and it works its way out in the world in all sorts of ways. The but it the heart of it is that when a wife um, does something in the marriage, um, she is helping Adam accomplish her goals. Now she has a responsibility before God for her spiritual life, for the way that she uses her resources and herself, and all there's all sorts of things. So it's not that she doesn't have responsibilities for her humanity and what she does. It's the mission that a family has is given to Adam, is given to the Adam in the household. And this is one of the reasons that there's so many difficulties with single motherhood, whether through widowhood or through sin or however it ends up. one of the things that makes it so difficult is you end up having someone that has to carry responsibilities that but that they weren't that they aren't built for, right? Men are built to be able to carry these some of these responsibilities in a way that women aren't, and God provides grace. He comes in and the church should be really helpful in helping with single mothers for this reason, um, because there's a need for someone to throw their shoulder underneath the weight of some of these things, and it's just because of the spiritual nature of masculinity and femininity. They don't carry responsibility in the same sort of way, and that's a huge blessing when it's working in the right sort of way, because it brings freedom both to men and to women in it when they are carrying responsibilities well, and when they are helping a man who's carrying responsibilities. You end up with men and women who are incredibly free to be masculine, to be feminine, to love one another, to respect one another's differences and enjoy one another's differences, because they're of the differences and then the nature of responsibility. But we also see that when a man isn't taking on the responsibilities that God has given him, that's called abdication. Right? That he has a responsibility, but he's refusing, or he's ignoring or refusing to do it. And the order that the abdication always works its way out, or we in the Old Testament we see it a couple of times. The way it works its way out is before somebody abdicates as a father, they abdicate as a husband, right? But when they are taking up their responsibilities as a husband, they see the responsibilities as a father become visible, but that there is in some sort of way, God has put the responsibilities of fatherhood behind the responsibilities of being a husband. Um, and this is why being a single dad ends up causing a different set of problems than being a single mom, right? A widower, or a is or someone who is a single dad by sin. Either way, it ends up causing a different set of problems than single motherhood, because there is the same way that a mom is just not able to also be a dad is not able to also be a mom, but it also is harder to be a father when you're not when you don't have a wife learn that you learn how to carry and hold somebody's hold responsibility through. So we see that Adam's first abdication is when the serpent comes along and talks to Eve, and he's right there with her, and he doesn't take his responsibilities. He doesn't protect her. He doesn't guide her, protect his family, guide his family, lead his family into greater faithfulness by addressing the serpent, by stepping in the way, by like Numbers says, by undoing any sort of vow that she makes with the serpent, or with death, actually, eventually. Um, but he, but the next abdication we see at the beginning of Genesis 4:1 is Adam only shows up two times in the story of Cain and Abel, and his Eve does all of the speaking, right? So Adam, after he abdicates his role as a husband, he isn't present to speak into his sons' lives, and they end up at rivalry with one another, um, because only because his wife is the only one present with his kids. So and because both of the times that he shows up, he basically shows up as a sperm donor, right? Genesis 4:1 and Genesis 4:25. Adam knows his wife, and then the children are born, and then Eve does all of the speaking. So that's but the abdication begins by not protecting and caring for his wife, by not understanding and leading her in it, it and what the leading would look like is him stepping in and saying, I take responsibility for actions that my family is going to take, right? So, and then you see him doing the same thing as a father. So that kind of uh, abdication, you see it again with First Kings at the beginning of Kings, where David it begins by sinning in adultery, and then the next thing he does is not parent his sons, right? So it's a pattern in the Bible that you've got this two-step abdication. So a man who is not taking responsibility to rule his domain or protect his domain well starts by not not doing a good job of caring for his wife, not doing a good job uh, being present and caring for his wife, and then the next step beyond that is abdicating or not being present and speaking well into his children's lives. Um, so, but what you have is the covenant headship of a husband begins by taking responsibility, right? So, and so when Adam abdicates with his wife, it turns into blame, right? So he moves from being grateful for her as a gift, right? That's the first thing that comes out of his mouth. That is his gratitude. But then once he stops taking responsibility for her, he starts accusing her and accusing God of giving him the wrong thing, right? He didn't, that she's no longer a gift. The woman you gave me, Lord, right? So the focus is on the giving, but instead of being a gift, he focuses on her as a curse. So he doesn't take responsibility for his mission, and then he turns to blame her, and then the children suffer because he isn't caring for her, honoring her, being thankful for her, and communicating that to his kids. And then the Proverbs, it tells us that a wise man listens to the law of his mother. So the presence of a mother in the life of the children is really, really important. You get a positive presence from a mother by means of a father taking responsibility, protecting and providing and loving their mom, and then she becomes an incredible and important voice of wisdom. We'll talk about uh, the the authority of motherhood, because God actually gives mothers a particular kind of authority in the life of their children. It's a particular wisdom, a wisdom giving authority, when a mom should be very confident in when they are dealing with their kids. But here, talking about fatherhood, we need as fathers to be taking responsibility, and that's what makes authority a blessing. When we don't take responsibility, we shift the blame, right? We become blamers. We become people that accuse, and then our authority is not a blessing. When we're grateful and we are protectors, then the authority is a blessing. Um, so, and a lot of this is fundamental to covenant theology, but we see that this was one of the main differences between Adam as an Adam and Jesus as an Adam, Adam as an Adam and Jesus as a second Adam. One, uh, because of sin, they brought death to all of their descendants, and the first sign of that death was blame shifting, right? Was accusation. That was the beginning. That was the first sign of that death. Whereas Jesus says, though he has not sinned, he takes responsibility for our sin, right? He didn't commit any sin, but he became sin for us, right? He's doing the opposite as an Adam, where he's taking responsibility for those under his care. And the state of the family it wasn't Eve's responsibility. The state of the human race was not Eve's responsibility; it was Adam's responsibility. Um, and this is what makes Adam a prefigure of Christ, right? A type of Christ, we're told by Paul in Ephesians and in Romans both. Paul uses that Adam is a type of Christ, and that's exactly what he talks about, taking responsibility. So we're going to talk about tomorrow. We'll talk about the husband's life being transferable, and that as you take responsibility, then your life can be lived by others. Your life can bless and transfer to others. Your strength can bless and transfer to others. We're going to talk about that tomorrow as the first outworking of what it means to take responsibility for your wife and kids to be able to live better, to have more strength because you give them your strength through your transferable life. So we'll talk about that tomorrow.